you do have that added layer of keeping track of all the receipts and what have reimbursed and what you haven't, but it's not that high of a hurdle to clear for that triple tax advantage. So that's what we're doing, and it works well for us. Thankfully, we have that room in our budget to pay for those medical expenses, and which is not easy. Like I said, we have a lot of medical expenses, but we've arranged our life in a way that we are able to do that and contribute to the HSA and just let it grow.
Welcome to the Teacher Money Show, the podcast dedicated to helping teachers navigate your unique financial challenges and unlock your financial superpowers. I'm your host, Sean Morgan, a full-time teacher. That's right, I teach every day just like you, and personal financial coach and speaker. And I'm here to help every teacher, whether you're a seasoned teacher looking for fresh insights or a new educator navigating your first paycheck, to have a richer wallet, classroom, and life. Contents of this podcast are informational in nature and are not legal or tax advice, and neither I nor my guests are engaged in the provision of legal, tax, or any other advice. You should not act upon this information without first seeking appropriate advice from an accountant, financial planner, lawyer, or other professional. I'm super excited to have Eric McClarey on the show again. Eric was on the show before. We were talking about the benefits of dual incomes for teachers. He is a fantastic resource when it comes to all things teachers and money. In fact, he co-wrote the book on the teacher pension system for Illinois, along with Carl Fish. So we've had both of these wonderful men on the show. So you can go back to the episode with Eric to learn more about him. And I'll link to that in the show notes at teachermoneyshow.com/podcast. And I'll also link to the episode with Carl so you can just get all of those goodness there. But let's just dive right down in. Eric, how are you doing? Welcome to the show.
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
I'm excited to have you here too, because we get to talk about one of my favorite things, which is the HSA. Now, we've talked about the health savings account just as a place to put your money that's tax advantaged and all that. But we're going to dive deeper today. Talk about why it is such an amazing place to put your money. So before we get there, for those who may not know, what exactly is an HSA? How does it work? Let's just give a quick rundown. And also, the HSA versus the FSA can be really confusing. So just like separating those two out would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So the HSA, it's a health savings account, right? So it's an account that you can get through your employer. So you have to have a certain type of insurance plan, which is a high deductible insurance plan to be eligible for the HSA. The high deductible, it sounds like it might be really a lot, but the amount for that high deductible plan is actually lower than you might expect. It's like $1,600 for individual, or $1,650 for individual, and around $3,500 for a family plan. So that as long as you have a deductible that reach that threshold, then you're eligible for this HSA. So a lot of people are eligible for the HSA based on their insurance plan. And so if you do elect to do the HSA, the employer will take money out of your check pre-tax and apply it to this savings account. And as that account grows, then you can choose or not choose, and we can get more into that later, to reimburse yourself for the medical expenses that you incur. And we all know how expensive it is just to go to the doctor. If you have any issues come up, we're talking about hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. So that's just the basic rundown. So it's this type of account. It is really confusing, the HSA versus the FSA. So the health savings account we just talked about, but the FSA is the flexible savings account. And it is similar in the fact that it's also pre-tax. It comes out of your check and it builds up in this account. And you can reimburse yourself for different expenses that you incur, health expenses. The flexible spending account, it is pretty flexible on what you can spend it on. There are lists of what's eligible and what's not eligible that you can look up. There are some differences though. So for example, the health savings account, the magic behind that is it's investable and grows over time. The flexible savings account, it's kind of a use it or lose it. So whatever you elect to apply to that flexible savings account for the year, you need to spend it because it does not roll over to that next year. And you can't invest those funds. It really is just a savings account, where the HSA it can be used as an investment account, which is really the magic behind it. And we can dive into that a little bit more.
Yeah. So just a few things. Well, you might not automatically qualify for an HSA just by virtue of having insurance. It's very likely that your school offers tiers of insurance, right?
Yes.
And they will almost always label it HSA PPO or whatever it is. And they'll put that word on there so that way you know it's HSA qualifying. Not always, so you just look for the deductible really. But there's a few things to keep in mind there as well. Even if you qualify, that doesn't mean your school offers an HSA. So that's something else to look into. However, we can talk about a way to get around that if you really want to, and the downfall of that or the benefit of that if you'd like. But just don't be like, oh, well, this sounds great. Let's dive right on in. Like you need to make sure that it's offered and that you qualify with that qualification. Because if you don't, the IRS is going to come back for you and get their cut plus a penalty, I'm sure. So keep that in mind. And then the other thing I really find interesting about the FSA, I want to make sure that we understand is just the use it or lose it nature of it. It is flexible spending account, while an HSA is a health savings account. So like the name already tells you what it's for. The FSA is meant to be spent. And the only time I've ever heard someone explain why an FSA was a good idea was they had a kid who's just like so many medical expenses that they're like, well, I'm going to use it. Like, and it's like, okay, that makes sense. Like you just like really need another place to funnel money into to try and handle these medical expenses because you just have so many of them. That's the only time I've ever heard someone say something that was like, yeah, I guess that makes sense to have an FSA. But other than that, like, I really am not sure why those exist. So that's someone can come on here and say, well, here's why, but like I can't really think of many other reasons to use that, especially if you're using an FSA over an HSA. HSAs are just so much more flexible, in my opinion, than a flexible spending account and powerful.
Yeah. Thank you for that distinction. I'm not even sure I said it correctly earlier, but the health savings account, the HSA, and the flexible spending account, the FSA, they are separate things, but can definitely get confusing.
So let's talk about choosing an HSA. Like if you qualify, if your employer has it, if they don't, are all HSAs created equal? Is there ever a time that you wouldn't choose an HSA? Like you'd say, like, there's one offered, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so they're not all created equal. You really have to dig into the plan. So there are going to be fees associated with the FSA, and you really need to understand what those fees are. Some companies are going to be higher fees than other. That's just kind of the nature of the beast. And if you're in an HSA that has high fees, it can really whittle away all of the benefits of the HSA. So you have to be really careful with the fees. If the fees are really high, it really might not be the best choice to do that, especially if you have very low contributions. So, for example, if you're only contributing, a few $100s per year, maybe even up to 1,000 or something, and you have high fees, it is really eroding away at any potential returns that the HSA might have. So definitely understand all the fees before you get into it. And that's both administration fees and the investment fees as well. So you might be paying a monthly administration fee just to have the HSA. But on top of that, if you invest those funds, you'd be paying expense ratios. And as you've talked about before, and we all know, when you invest and the expense ratios are high, again, it just eliminates all the benefits that come with that investment. Another thing that you really need to take in consideration, the HSAs, you have to have this high deductible healthcare plan, and the deductibles can be quite high. So, for example, our family deductible is $10,000, and that's a lot of money. And you are responsible for paying all of that deductible before the health insurance kicks in. So if you're going to have high health expenses, or you just could not cover the deductible because it's so high, then you might want to opt for a different insurance option that has a lower deductible. you'll likely be paying higher premiums, so that monthly amount that you pay just to have the insurance, but your deductible would be lower. So you really have to understand your own situation. If you know you're going to have high expenses annually, the health savings account might not be the best route for you to go. You might want to opt for something that has a lower deductible if it's offered through your employer.
Yeah, so I want to hit this. So my deductible for my whole family, so like a total out of pocket maximum, I guess, not my deductible, is like $12,000. I
Hmm.
have a really crummy insurance plan.
Hmm.
But I have one, so I can't get one anywhere else. It's really frustrating.
Yep.
But I have a really high, deductible, but I still opt for the HSA because I did the math. So if you go to teachmoney.show.com/podcast and go to the show notes, I will link to the HSA episode that I did, where I did the math for you and I showed that if you, in some instances, even if you pay the total out of pocket maximum for the year, you will be out of pocket less money than if you are paying the higher premium version. So like it does take more discipline because you can't just turn around and spend that money wherever you want. But if you are going to put that same money towards your premium into the HSA instead, you are likely going to end up further ahead because you usually don't hit your out-of-pocket maximum every single year. And just the premiums are usually so much higher. And just because you have a higher premium doesn't mean you don't pay anything out of pocket, right? You have higher premiums and you still have an out-of-pocket maximum and a deductible and co-pays and all these other things that add up. So you really need to do the math on it to say, is the higher premium plan worth it? So like usually, this is my experience, if you are a single person on the plan and you pay like, $15 a month or whatever it is through your employer, because most, teachers get basically or entirely free health insurance for just themselves, right?
Yep.
Then in that instance, I mean, why not just take it, right? Because you're not paying anything really out of pocket. But as soon as you maybe add a family and you start having those higher expenses every month, it might not make sense anymore to do the higher plan. So that's the math you need to do, is to calculate what if worst case scenario, what am I going to be paying? Best case scenario, what am I going to be paying? It's likely in the middle. Is that in the margin of error? I think that is a huge thing to calculate. And then I know I'm not talking a long time here, but I just want to say amen to everything that Eric is saying because it's so good. So my first HSA, I was so excited. I was like, I have an HSA now. Yes, like because I love these plans, and I sign up for it, and I'm putting in like $50 a month because I was relatively new at teaching still. And then I get my statement, and they're charging me $1.50 a month. That's higher than a 2% fee on the money I was putting in, basically. And I'm like, that's a really steep thing to be throwing at me for putting in $50 a month. Like I need, it's like, why am I getting charges? So it's just an administration fee. Like, and it's like the more I put in, it'd be less of a burden, but still $1.50 is just for the privilege of having the account. Then I said, well, can I invest it? Like, oh yes, you can invest it with another company. So like I'd have to have my money here, and then I'd have to transfer it to another company, and that other company did not have a ton of low fee products. So I was like, yeah, no. So I yanked it out entirely, and I did this. I want to see what your thoughts are on this. I ended up, just because I still qualified, I went to Fidelity and I opened up an HSA with Fidelity, and I just started putting money in there. So there are some differences to how that works. So I want to hear what your thoughts are on that choice.
So I think that's a great choice. I think the complexity of doing something like that will scare a lot of people. If you're willing to put in the time to research this and then open up the different accounts and everything, I think that's a great option. Uh, Not everybody's going to want to do that. So I mean, you really hit the nail on the head when you say, if you're putting in $50 a month and you're getting charged $1.50 per month for administrative fees, that's a high fee, and it really that's hard to swallow. As your account grows over time, that administrative fee, the rate would essentially go down and down and down, because you have more in your account. But if you're willing to do what you did, I think that's a super option. So my administration fee is actually $2.50 per month. So I mean, and if you're only putting in $50 a month or something like that, It's not great for the returns, especially early on. So if you're willing to put in the work, going to Fidelity is definitely a great option.
Yeah, and just one thing that I learned, and, the complexity gets really at you here, but the problem with going to a third party is because it's not reducing your pre-tax contribution. It doesn't pull out and affect your FICA taxes. I think that's the right way of saying that. Correct me
I
if I'm wrong.
No, that sounds correct. And I'm an educator, so this is not my area of expertise. But when you go to a third party like that, it is treated differently with taxes. So you don't have all the same benefits. So there's just all these variables to keep in mind, which is why some people just if you have the HSA, even if you have higher fees than what you want, you might just swallow it and stomach it and really try to load it up so those administrative costs come down or relatively come down over time.
Right. But I'm just gonna throw this out here one more time, that if you have to put the money in there and then go to another company and like this is their partner that you invest with and you don't like that investing partner, it might not be worth it, because just like with the $1.50 and then the 1 or 2% fee that they're going to charge you on your HSA, you might as well just open up an IRA
Yeah.
and invest there with
Yep.
Fidelity or Vanguard or something like that at that point.
Yep.
That's just my personal. All of the tax advantages are not worth it if you're going to have high fees.
Yep. Agree.
So I'm assuming, because we're talking about it, that you have an HSA and you are using it. So how are you using your HSA?
Yeah, so I mentioned before we have a high deductible plan, so it's $10,000 per year for our deductible, and like you said, the out of pocket is even more than that. It's 12,000 for us. So we definitely qualify for this plan. Thankfully, my employer does do a contribution annually, which is really nice. And then we elect to contribute funds every month as well. So I've been at my job for 7 years now, and we've been doing this every single year. We contribute what we can, and we've been letting this account grow. We have not been reimbursing ourselves at all for any of the healthcare costs that we've incurred. And I have 4 young children, so we are no stranger to going to the doctor's office. In fact, this last year, in a span of about a month, we had a broken bone and stitches, and we had various illnesses. So we are incurring lots of healthcare costs. We build that into our budget. So we are covering all of these costs with just our regular cash flow. We have our separate emergency fund, and we are just stocking away the money in the HSA and letting it grow. And over time, annually, it's compounding on itself because we're investing in it, and we thankfully do have pretty good investment options that are low fee, and we're not going to touch those funds at least for a long time, and we're going to let that compound interest work its magic. We're going to let that money earn more money and just keep stacking more and more and more. Eventually, we'll get to a place where we feel like the HSA can fund basically all of our healthcare expenses just with the interest that it's generating every month. At that point, we might decide to pull out some of the money for healthcare expenses, but we might not as well. And we could just let it grow and keep contributing for our entire career, and then use it as kind of a supplementary retirement account. The HSA has the triple tax advantage. It's the only account that has this triple tax advantage. So it's really an amazing account. And that triple tax advantage, it means it comes out of your check pre-tax, so you don't pay tax on it to go into your account. All of the growth is not taxed. And then when you take it out, as long as you take it out for a qualified health expense, it's not taxed as well. So that triple tax advantage. All you have to do is save receipts. Okay, so I've been saving every single receipt that we get. Like I said, we just pay it out of our regular cash flow. Our monthly expenses has been built into our budget. I save all of that. And when we are ready to tap that HSA, whether that's 10 years down the road or in retirement, I will go back to those receipts and just start pulling the account or pulling money out of the account and make sure that I have everything documented, what receipts I've used and which ones I have not. And that money is never taxed. It's really a beautiful thing. So you do have that added layer of keeping track of all the receipts and what you have reimbursed and what you haven't. Um, but it's not that high of a hurdle to clear for that triple tax advantage. So that's what we're doing, and it works well for us. Thankfully, we have that room in our budget to pay for those medical expenses, and which is not easy. Like I said, we have a lot of medical expenses, but we've arranged our life in a way that we are able to do that and contribute to the HSA and just let it grow.
Yeah, I love that you made that space. I've gone through seasons personally where I've been able to make that space, and then seasons where I have multiple dental things happening right now that are quite expensive, and my son's having some other things like, okay, the space isn't there right now. So we've used some of our HSA contributions, and then I'm hoping that by the end of next month we'll be able to start making that space again, right after we hit a pretty significant wall. And that's what I love about the flexibility behind it. It's like I can grow it, and then I've made these contributions the last couple months, and I need it right now because something hit, so I can use that, and then I can go back to growing it. So I think that's powerful, but definitely the power of letting it grow is huge because you can pull it out later tax free, and even if you don't, when you reach retirement age, it transitions automatically to a regular retirement account.
That's right. Yep. Yep. I love what you said. So, money is meant to be used. So when you need it, then it's there for it. And so I actually think of it as kind of another emergency fund for us. So if something catastrophic did happen and we did not have room in our budget, we'll tap it. I mean, that's what it is. And I won't blink twice about it. We're going to try not to do that, but it's there if we need it, for sure.
Yeah, I love that way of thinking about it. It's there's just the money's lines of defense, really, and
Yep.
you just have another line of defense. So like, why not? And if your employer doesn't offer the HSA, beg them. If they do and they don't offer a match, beg them, right? Bother them about it. Whatever it is, like, look, it is, in my opinion, if you have a good HSA provider with a good investment option, it is the best place to put your money, just hands down, right? It has those ifs, right? I think that's why the IRA is touted as like the best thing, because like you have the control over where it goes. But if the HSA meets those requirements, it really is just so powerful.
Yep. Yep.
So how have you, like, you've talked about making space in your budget, but how have you made that space to allow the HSA to grow while dealing with current medical needs of 4 children?
Yeah. It's hard. I think my wife and I, we are very much aligned with our goals, the way that we see and use money. I think we're both fairly frugal by nature. We're not big spenders, and which so we don't have to always just be reining ourselves in. We don't really care what we drive. We have a 2007 car that has like 160,000 miles, and we're gonna run that thing as long as we can. We did recently get a van, a used van, 6 years old. So we're used car people. But with 4 kids, having a minivan is definitely very helpful. Um, my wife is also a teacher, so I teach at a small college, and she's a high school teacher. So we do have the dual incomes, and she has worked really, really hard at increasing her pay. She's taken additional. She got her master's and has kept taking additional classes to move as far on the salary schedule as she possibly can. So she's done an awesome job on that. I know I work at a college now, and so a lot of people might think that I make more than a K-12 teacher. I actually don't. My wife out earns me by quite a bit, so don't think that I'm rolling in the money because I work at a college. I'm not. Um, I think we're just intentional, and we're not just like people that don't do anything. We go on trips and, we eat out when the kids have, soccer or swim or whatever. We just we track our money and we see what we're spending and we make sure that we're aligned on decisions. Um, and we just kind of make it work. So I wish I had some kind of magic pill to that I could give to everybody, but you just kind of have to figure out what works for your family. And like you said, there are different seasons in your life. Some seasons of your life are going to be more expensive than others, where maybe you're not able to save as much during that time. And then the next season of your life comes, and you are able to ramp up that spend or that saving and maybe contribute to an HSA at that time. Don't stress yourself out if you're not in a position to do this in your season of life.
Yes, I love that. The saying personal finance is personal
Hmm.
is there for a reason, right? Like, don't be like, oh, well, Eric is doing it this way, so I have to do it that way. That mentality kind of got me in a lot of trouble early on. Like, I have to do this, I have to do that, and like I was very stressful. Just do what works for you, right? If you're
Exactly.
like that teacher I was talking about, who their kid is just drowning in medical expenses,
Yep.
right? He's like a freshman, and he's like 4 feet tall or something like that. And he's really skinny, so he's just got a lot of like weight issues and things like that. They need that medical
Yep.
spending to be able to cover his constant needs to go to the doctor and figure out what they can do to support him medically, right? That is where you're at.
Yeah.
That's where you need to spend your money, right? Your kid's
Absolutely.
health comes before your maxing out your HSA needs. So definitely just take this as another thing you can do
Yep.
if it is what's best for
Yep.
you.
It's options, and so you mentioned maxing out your HSA. That's a wonderful thing. We don't max out our HSA. Would I love to be able to do it? Yeah, but paying for all the medical costs, we're not at that place yet. At some point, I would like to be, but we're not there yet, and that's okay.
Okay, so let me ask you this. If you have medical costs that are going over the amount that you can like not cover with your HSA, but you haven't maxed out your HSA yet, would you put more into your HSA to cover those medical costs to get the tax benefit? What are
Yeah.
your thoughts?
Yeah, so if we had something come up that we knew was just going to max out our deductible, so like a surgery or something like that, we would go ahead and contribute the max and then pull out what we needed to. Thankfully, we have not had a massive expense like that yet. Will we at some point? Probably, because it's me and the kiddos on it. So in that case, we would. Um, but fingers crossed we'll not have to deal with that for a long time. But yeah, so if you're going to incur the costs anyway, you might as well get the tax benefit from it.
Right. But if you have that gap between what you're contributing and the max, which I think is like 7.5 grand right now, maybe
Yeah,
it's up to 8,
it's
somewhere
something
around
like
there.
that. Yeah,
That's for a family
I think it
anyway.
might have even gone up over 8 for a
For a
family
family,
plan
yeah.
at this point.
I should look these things up before I start spouting them off, but it's around there. You can look it up. That's what Google's
Yeah,
for.
that's right. That's
So
right.
if you're not up there yet, you have like $1,000, I don't know, allergy bill. That's what's on my mind right now. My son's got allergies, so we're doing um, uh, injections.
Hmm.
If you have that, then you just throw that money into the HSA and then turn around and pay it, and that's
Yep.
tax free, right?
Yep.
So
That's
it's
exactly right.
it's a powerful way to balance that.
Yep.
Okay, a hard question for you. If you could only invest in one account, would you choose an HSA or an IRA?
So this is such a good question because I love both accounts, and I'm not going to give a great. I'm going to give a teacher answer, and I'm going to say it depends. So if you're willing to spend a little bit of extra time and learn about all the intricacies of the HSA, then I would say do the HSA. If that stuff doesn't interest you one bit, if you don't want to spend any extra time thinking about that stuff, totally get that. That is legit. People have many other things to worry about. Teachers have a billion things to worry about in the classroom, and you just want the simplicity. The Roth IRA is such a great option as well. That you're gonna put money away in there and be so happy that you did in retirement, and that's a totally fine route to go. So if you're willing to put the little extra time and work into it, the HSA, in my opinion, it can't be beat. The Roth IRA is a close second because of the simplicity, and you don't have to worry about these other things like keeping receipts and reimbursing yourself and that kind of thing. So it really depends on the person. If they want to do a little bit more, go the HSA. If they would rather not, go the Roth IRA. You're not going to be wrong either way.
Okay. So two things. One, and once again, it does depend on the HSA provider and the fees
Sure.
and all that stuff. So make sure you check that thing first. We're never going to give just blanket, everyone should do this advice. But I did ask you what you would do.
Okay, what I would do, I would still do the HSA.
Okay, fair
Yep.
enough.
Yep.
I think the HSA, it takes the cake. So definitely a great option. Okay. Once again, both of us are lucky enough to have fantastic HSAs.
Yeah.
Both of us are also lucky enough to have employers that contribute to our HSA with
Mhm.
good investment options, right? So like, don't just be like, well, they both said HSA, I should do the HSA, right? It depends entirely on the plan that you are in.
Great point.
Okay, so someone who's listening to this are like, wonder if I have an HSA, or I know I have an HSA, but I haven't acted on it yet. What do you think the first thing someone should do when they're trying to get started with an HSA and using it for investment accounts?
Yeah, I think you just need to start by asking some questions. So, whatever department in your school district deals with this, it's different for every school district, especially depending on the size. But whoever it is that works with the insurance plans, just go to them and ask some questions. They should be able to answer these questions. It's also not uncommon where I'm not sure. Let me look into it. So just start by asking questions, figuring out what type of plan you have, what all the costs associated with it are. So you figure out the administrative fees, look into the investment options, figure out what the deductible and out-of-pocket maximum, figure out all of that stuff. And so at that point, you can make an informed decision. Once you have that information, you're like, yes, this HSA is a good option for me. So I'm going to go ahead and next time I'm enrolling in insurance, I'm going to go ahead and dive in and make the leap and start saving in that HSA. If it's not offered, then it's not offered. Maybe you start, trying to get that plan offered at your district. I think most districts at this point do offer the HSA option, but not all of them. So, you can start advocating for it. And if you find that your HSA does not have good investment options or is really high fee, maybe you can advocate for a better company to do the HSA with. So really just get the wheels turned. Maybe summer's a great time to ask these questions because you're not, doing lesson plans every day and grading every night. But you really need to start looking into it and figuring out if it's the right option for you or not. And if it is, make that switch when you enroll and start funding that HSA and investing it.
Yeah, I love it. Ask questions. That's like always the first place to start, but
Yeah.
want to make sure someone knows, where to start going. Okay. So wrapping up here, just got two more questions for you. The same questions I always end with. First question is, what is your number one tip for teachers to have a richer wallet, classroom, and life?
So I think just doing something to make your life better. So overcoming inertia is really, really difficult, right? So we tend just to keep doing the same things that we've always done. And change is hard. So if you've never saved before, just save a little. Just start. Just overcome that inertia. Open up a Roth IRA if you're not ready to do an HSA. If you've opened up a savings account, then you can open up a Roth IRA. It's not any more complex. Maybe contribute just a small amount just to see how it works. Invest that small amount, maybe even $25, just to see how it works, just to get moving. And as you do this, you're going to start becoming more and more comfortable, where you might start doing a monthly contribution and then see the compound interest work over time. And that will really motivate you to continue. So once you overcome that inertia and get yourself moving, you are more likely to keep moving and keep progressing. And so these little bitty steps that you take can over time have these humongous effects that really make your life better.
Awesome. Overcome inertia. I think it's a very unique piece of advice. We haven't really received that before, but it's so true. I love it. It's, you just need to make one change. Once you made the change, that kind of becomes your new inertia, right? It's your new
Yes.
direction. So just, slow little bits, moving you in the right direction will get you there.
Yep.
When we try and make those big Herculean, changes, like your New Year's resolution,
Yep.
it's not going to happen. But when you make just itty bitty changes, it'll slowly get you where you want to go.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely.
All right, Eric, last question for you. If a teacher is really connected with your story and wants to connect with you, what is the best way for them to contact you?
Yeah, I love hearing from teachers. I love talking to teachers. So please send a message my way. So I have a website. It's erictmc.com. So it's ericteachermoneycoach.com. You can also email me. I have teachermoneycoach at teachermoneycoach.com. Gosh, that's terrible. At gmail.com. Teachermoneycoach@gmail.com. You can maybe link the email and the website to this podcast and just reach out that way. Love to hear from you. I love doing speaking. I go out and talk about Illinois pension and retirement accounts. I do that stuff for free. It's part of the scholarship that I do with Illinois College. So I love connecting and just hope to hear from you all.
Yeah. So if you weren't able to get that written down, you can go to teachermoneyshow.com/podcast, or you can go down to the description of your podcast player and get the direct link to the show notes there. I will have the direct link to Eric's website and his email, as well as the other shows, previous episodes that I mentioned before. So you can find all of that stuff there and just connect with Eric. He's a great guy, doesn't bite. So go ahead and reach out to him and he'll help you out if you have a question. Eric, this was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. I had a blast.
Wow, that was a fantastic episode. Thank you, Eric, so much for coming on the show. Now it's time for the Cliff Notes. The Cliff Notes are brought to you by Ally. Ally Bank is what I use for my high yield savings account. So if you are looking to have a place to put your money, maybe to build up an emergency fund before you start investing in an HSA, because I always recommend you start with an emergency fund, then consider Ally. You can find a referral link for Ally to open up your Ally Bank high yield savings account on the show notes at teachermoneyshow.com/podcast. Now on to the clip notes. Number 1, the HSA is for saving. It's a long-term thing. You don't want to use it unless you have to. The FSA is for spending. Remember that distinction. If you want to save, you need the HSA. The FSA is fantastic if you have a lot of medical expenses, but it is not ideal for saving because it's use it or lose it. The HSA, on the other hand, if you use it, you lose it, the long-term gain. Number 2, HSA administration fees can completely wreck your return early on. So make sure you're aware of what your administration fees are, and then also compare that to the investment fees. If they are investing in with a company that doesn't have low fees, it might not be the best option. So keep the fees in mind, because that's going to make a big difference, as well as your deductible. So the other thing to keep in mind when you're choosing an HSA plan is the deductibles. If you're going to have to spend so much money you can't afford that, you might need the premium plan. But remember, the higher premium plan. But remember that higher premium plan will probably cost more even if you meet that total out-of-pocket max for both of them. So consider, if you can do it, putting that extra premium into your HSA instead and balancing that out. But once again, do the math to make sure it works, especially if you're a single teacher where you aren't paying pretty much anything into the high deductible plan. It could definitely be worthwhile to stick with that one. So do the math to compare those. Number 3, the HSA is triple tax advantaged. Money goes in tax-free, it can grow tax-free, and then come back out tax-free if you've kept those receipts for the qualified medical expenses that you did not reimburse yourself for over the years. Then it will become a regular retirement account after that. So you'll be able to pull that money out once you hit retirement age. There, of course, is tax associated with that once you pulled it out, just as a regular retirement account, but those medical expenses remain tax-free the whole time. Number 4, it's like an emergency fund. It's a line of defense. You don't have to stick rigidly to this. I'm going to keep money in the HSA no matter what. If you need it, you can pull it out. I love that flexibility of it, keeping in mind that it is there to be used if you need it. But if you can avoid it, it is better to hold it long term. Number 5, to be able to balance your medical expenses and putting money into an HSA, it's important to be aligned with your partner, be intentional with your spending, track your money, all those things we talk about. if this is something you really want, because it's for your retirement, then you need to do all those things we've talked about just to keep yourself on track. Number 6, remember personal finance is personal. If you are struggling to pay for medical bills and you can't do an HSA, it's okay. If your school doesn't offer an HSA, it's okay. If you think this sounds complicated and you don't want to do it, it's okay. You do not have to do an HSA just because we told you that it's such a great account. It is only there to be used if that's what you want to do. And it is so great if you are willing to put in the time. We talked about, would you do an HSA or an IRA? Because both of us are willing to put in the time, we say HSA. But if you aren't, don't do it, right? So, or if you don't have that great account to invest in, or it's got high fees, don't do it. So just keep in mind that it's personal, it's up to you. And if you're willing to put in that time, it's great, but you don't have to. And lastly, number 7, overcome inertia. This is one of my favorite, number 1 tips, just because it's so unique and it's so easy to think of, right? If you just overcome your current, state and start going in a new direction, that's the direction you'll keep going. So just gently nudge yourself in a new direction. Increase the amount you're putting into a high yield savings account or into an HSA, but just a little bit. And then, after another couple of months, do a little bit again, and you'll slowly build up the inertia in the direction you want to go instead of trying to do a big grand thing all at once. Okay, so those are the cliff notes. Once again, thank you for listening. And if you have a friend who you think this would benefit, please share it with them. We are trying to get this message out to all the teachers in America and perhaps the world that you can be rich if you're a teacher. But remember, as a teacher, you are already rich. Your wallet just needs to catch up. If you would like help on your personal financial situation, go to teachermoneyshow.com/coaching and you'll be able to find different ways that I can help you there. If you would like to participate in spreading this message of financial empowerment to teachers, I would encourage you to talk to your administrator or to your district level about going to SeanKMorgan.com to find more information there. And regardless of which one of those you need, please like and subscribe so that way we can spread the reach of this more. Leave a 5-star rating and review. That's going to help more teachers find this, and then turn around and tell a teacher friend. I really appreciate it.